This is one of those jobs that you might want to seriously consider outsourcing to a shop. And I say that even though a shop is probably going to charge you somewhere in the vicinity of $300 to $500 to get this job done. And the reason for that is you either need a very well-equipped shop or you need some special tools in order to get it done. It's also extremely time-consuming. In order to get to the steering head bearings, I'm going to have to remove my handlebars, I'm going to have to remove my triple clamp, I'm going to have to remove my front wheel, I'm going to have to remove my front brake, I'm going to have to remove both forks, and that's just to get to the steering head stem, which I then have to remove from the bike, and then I finally have access to the bearings. Now a good shop should be able to do this in, let's say, 3 hours, but it's going to take me a good bit longer than that because I'm not a professional mechanic. And at the end of the day, your time is money, whether you spend that time reading a book or relaxing in a hammock or whatever you're choosing to do. Now, I personally enjoy working on this type of stuff, so it's not wasted time for me at all, and I'm not factoring that into my equation. So I'm going to go ahead and tackle it, and I'm going to film it in case you decide that you too want to tackle this job yourself. I'm going to show you how I did it and how I got it done. All right, let me just look at this for a second and see what I want to hit first, because basically this whole front end has to come off and then eventually go back on. I guess I'll get this off first. Some of my accessories. Looking at the bike for a second, I've decided how I'm going to attack this. I'm going to remove the handlebars off so I can loosen that nut up first while my bike is still on the ground. So that way my bike isn't on a stand and I don't have to have somebody else hold the bike for me while I get that nut off. So that's where I'm going to start, and then I'm going to jack the bike up, take off the front wheels and the front forks. I think that's probably the best way to attack this because both wheels are going to be on the ground and I'll be able to break that nut off. Darn mosquito. All right, so this is gonna go up and out like this. So this is the definition of overkill, but the only way to get to this thing is with a socket and extender, and this is the only breaker bar I had, so that's what I'm gonna use. And just this 1/2-inch drive is not gonna be enough, so you need a breaker bar. You just don't need this big of a breaker bar. Dang, man, maybe you do need this big of a breaker bar. All right, I'm gonna give it hell. There it comes. Now these are 2 bolts as well that you might want to get off before you jack up your bike, or loosen before you jack up your bike. But I think we'll be able to get it. Those are tight. It's my fault when I put them on there. There it comes. All right, so they're loose. I don't know if that comes. That was loose. I'm glad I did this. All right, we got 6 more bolts to go till these front forks are off. These do not have to come out, they just need to be loosened. Oh, come off. There. Now I should be able to grab the fork and wiggle it out. This is connected through here. You don't have to undo anything. And that should wiggle out, and the other one is going to come off in the exact same way. So now I'm going to remove this bolt here, and then this whole section here is going to be able to come forward. And I dropped it on the ground. There's a little cap that comes with it. Don't lose it. Now this whole bit should be able to come up and over. I think you should be beginning to see why I said this job's a bit of a mess, so just know what you're getting into before you get into it here. All right, so now I'm gonna use a hammer and a punch to knock this thing around. Make sure I'm going the right way. Yep. And it's not on very tight, so this works really well. I actually have the wrench, so I don't know what I was doing, but the punch works fine for this particular problem. All right. So be ready. As soon as this gets loose, this is just going to fall off. And I probably should have taken this bit off too, but I did not. Okay, that's my problem. Okay, so disconnect this first. Now, as soon as I disconnect this whole thing's going to want to fall, so let me act like I got it 3 hands here and get this done. All right, cool beans. Okay, so for obvious reasons, you're going to want to disconnect the head unit from your triple clamp, and you're also going to want to disconnect the front fender before you do what I just did, and it falls out and then it's all still connected and you're in a mess. But we got it out, nothing's hurt, so let's keep going. At this point in time, your bike's also going to look pretty sad. Your bike's going to look really sad. I guess we'll shoot a thumbnail. Now I'm going to pull out the inner race from the top, and I still have an outer race in here and here that I need to get out. I mean, this thing's not wanting to come, and I've chipped it inside here a little bit, so that's lovely. Got it. Be careful in there. You probably want to use a brass punch because I nicked my steering tube and had to take a file and go back in there and file out. Ultimately, I don't think it matters because the steering stem itself is going to be on bearings and it's not going to touch that bit, but still, I might have to like zip tie it back somehow. Okay, I tied this out of the way now with a zip tie, so it's somewhat manageable. Let me see if I moved it. Out it comes. Now I'm going to cut off this outer cage here. Okay, so the hardest part is now done. Let's see if we can get this thing reassembled together and go through all these wires and make sure they're all sorted back right. And we'll get this steering system adjusted, and I'm happy to have this job done, honestly. This was a bit of a booger bear, and I'm happy it went as smooth as it did. There was a couple points where it could have. The manual says to tighten it to 40 something pounds of torque, which is hard to do because of the nature of this bolt. Here too. We got a mess. All right, so I've reassembled everything and I've gotten it just about back together, and I was reading through the manual as far as how to adjust this nut here. And one thing that I didn't do is seat the bearings properly. So, and there's also no play in this, so this is good. So one thing it wanted to check that the bearings were seated properly and that this was too loose is if there was any vertical play or side to side play in the bearing. You know, there's a little play in the bike because it's on a jack, but these feel solid, so that is good. So once you have the gas tank and the seat off, now you have access to these bolts here, and you can adjust these without having to take off the whole enchilada. I'm tightening this down to, the manual says 33 foot-pounds. That's probably about 33. All right, and then after that's tight, I have to move this here to here 5 times. So I said at least 5 times, so we're going to do it like 10. Turn it now from here a quarter turn to a half a turn. So we're gonna do, I think I'd rather have mine a little looser, so I'm gonna do a half a turn. All right, so that was a quarter turn. Let's see what that feels like. It's pretty close. I'm just going to loosen it just a little bit. Right there's where I think it feels good. That feels really good to me. So now we're almost done, and I don't really want to put the rest stack together, so I'm just going to use some good old-fashioned editing magic. All right, so that's done, and I'm not gonna lie, that is a job and a half, and it requires some special tools, so definitely know what you're getting into before you try to take this one on. Now, I'm gonna go ride this thing for a few hundred miles, and then I'm going to reseat my head bearings, and that's gonna be about it. I hope y'all enjoyed this video, I hope y'all found it helpful, and stay tuned for the next one. Till then.